people deserve an opportunity. And if nobody's going to create that opportunity for them, I'll create that opportunity for them.
Matthew DePrimo, Army veteran and founder of CareerBridge, is closing the talent gap by connecting purpose-driven professionals with opportunity, proving that real leadership doesn't end when the uniform comes off.
I will step out, put my neck out, and say, you're worthy. And so I created CareerBridge.
What's up, everybody? This is Ryan Van Orn back with another edition of the Milpreneur podcast. Today, we are brought to you by our company, Synergist. It is your scalable operations company that helps you grow exponentially faster at a fraction of the cost. Go check out synergist.com for more information. Also, while you're at it, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube and Spotify channels for more episodes of the Milpreneur podcast. Today, I have Matthew DePrimo with CareerBridge. How are you today, sir?
Doing wonderful. How are you?
Man, if I was any better, I'd be you, bro. You're killing the game, man. I love seeing what you got going on, and I'm eager to learn more about it, my friend.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, man. So before we jump into what you're doing currently, I always love to start with our vets, like our military service, man. So tell us, you were in the Army. So tell us a little bit about your time while you served.
Yeah. So my father was a 14-year vet. I had a lot of history of service members throughout my family: Air Force, Navy, Army. And back in 2017, I was working as an internal investigator, and I was waiting to hear back from the Air Force after taking the AFOQT to try and become a pilot. And I was working as an internal investigator, then in a high-end warehouse for TJ Maxx, Marshall's Home Good, TJX, I think was the parent company. And so somebody was coming out of the warehouse from the back and suffered a heart attack. I grew up as a deep sea lifeguard or deep water lifeguard. And so seeing that, I just sprung right into action, not even thinking, it becomes a muscle memory. And so after 6 minutes of CPR, the paramedics show up and, we get a good defibrillator on him and force some air into him. And, he ends up surviving. Right. Wow. So after this crazy adrenaline rush, the CEOs of the company, they pull me in and the C-suite, and they say, thank you so much. We appreciate all the work that you've done. Like that, this is huge for their family, for our organization, for, the community. I was like, wow, this feels really good, giving back, being recognized for giving back. But, as much as they showed me that recognition, I just felt like there was a higher calling somewhere else. And knowing that I've been waiting on the Air Force to get back for me, I'm a little on the impatient side. So I went to my father and I said, Dad, we got to do this. We got to do it right now. So we went to an Army recruiter and he kind of helped me walk through the process with them and ensure that I was going to go in as an officer. So I went in as a 09 Sierra, which is an officer candidate. And you go down to Fort Benning, Georgia. Yep. I went through, my infantry basic training. And then I go to OCS, where I would commission as an officer. They branched me Signal Corps. My background from Penn State University was rhetorical analysis and theory. The Army translated that to communications, and they translated communications to signal. So here I am, packing my bags and going off to Augusta, Georgia for Fort Gordon, the Cyber Center of Excellence, to learn how to become a signal officer. And so, I drank from the fire hose, as they say, and
yep.
Impatient again, I reach out to branch and I'm trying to figure out where it is that I'm going. And they keep telling me they didn't have their allocations yet. And, after about maybe the 5th phone call in a month, I think they were just so sick of hearing from me. I said, well, what's guaranteed? What does always come up in your patch chart, right? Or in your duty stations that you can't fill. So it's a tough one to fill. And they said, well, Fort Bliss, Fort Hood, Fort Riley, and Fort Drum. Now, Fort Hood and Fort Bliss are both in Texas, and the heat kills me, so couldn't do it. And Fort Riley's in Kansas. It's pretty hot there as well. And so I thought, Fort Drum, pretty cool history, skiing and all that. And I was a skier for the Penn State ski team, so man, I was like, yeah, that could be really cool for me. Let's do that. So I said, give me Fort Drum. And so they sent me up to Fort Drum. And I arrived on station in 2018 and, super high op tempo. We just got right after it. I didn't even get to fully in process. and I had to sign for my equipment because I had to send my troops into the field. I was going out in the field with them to do retransmissions, to support the cab and the infantry units there at 1st BCT. And so, it was just from day zero, I was on the ground running, and I loved it. I ate it right up. We jokingly say, high speed, as somebody who's always trying to be, the guy who gets after it. But, I like to think I was pretty high speed, perfect PT scores. The brigade put me in charge of the PT program, and also running classes for high frequency radios and all these other really intriguing things. But, I felt like, again, there was a calling for more. And so I was burning the candle at both ends. I was doing 2-a-day workouts. I was, staying late in the office, always just trying to get ahead, and a deployment comes up, and I thought, wow, I've been to JRTC twice in 1 year and then once the following year. And we do all this train up, man, I got to get on that patch chart. I got to get on that deployment. And so, I come to find out my unit's not going to make it. Right. There was no need for a signal company forward. So they said, well, there might be a need, because what we were doing at that time was kind of, Syrian border, Afghanistan type of a thing. And they said, so we might have a need. We'll send you guys to Kuwait. And I went to my commander and I said, sir, whatever you got to do, get me on that deployment. I want to be boots on ground. Like, I can't just sit back home and watch you guys leave. I can't sit in Kuwait and hope that something's going to happen. I got to get out there. So they said, okay, real crazy position. So I went from being a signal officer to a contracting officer representative in Afghanistan, managing a $32 million base defense contract. And I had about 982 people under me. So as a black bar lieutenant, promotable, waiting to pin captain, I got almost 1,000 people working under me, and these folks were from all over the world. They were mercenaries from South Africa and Bulgaria and Afghanistan, local nationals and a whole mix. So I'm on the firing range 3 times a day, training these guys how to fire these Kalashnikov AK-47s that were purchased, after the Russians had left them behind from the 80s, and, just working across the country with where these different contracts are in support of defending these different outposts and FOBs. And so, one thing led to another, right? Like I said, burning the candle at both ends. I got myself into some trouble, and physically got myself into it. And so I sustained some injuries, mentally and physically. And I come back from Afghanistan, big army slaps something on my desk, says, hey, medically retired. So, wow, first you're like,
how did that hit you, by the way?
Man, like
you're going 110%, right? You're going 110%. And then they just, like I almost dropped an F-bomb there, but they hit the brakes on you. And you're like, how did you thinking, like,
I'm going to do 20, signal officers, no offense to the other SIGOs out there. Love you guys. You're all my brothers and sisters, but I've never run into a signal officer that can keep up with me. And so
you're Captain America, bro.
In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be the signal officer. I'm going to do 20 plus years. Like, this is going to be me. And then I get back and they're like, with the injuries that you sustained, you're no longer fit for duty, and it wasn't a medical separation. It was a medical retirement.
Wow.
So pension and healthcare, thank God. But at 28 years old.
Yeah. That's a lot to take in mentally, man.
Yeah. So after 5 years of total time in service, I'm walking off Fort Drum's installation in 2022, and my last day as a active duty service member was July 31st of 2022. And so I was engaged to be married. I was prepping to move to my next duty station for my next command position. Big army, wasn't talking to little army, local army. So, I'm trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And then, the packet comes across your desk and you got 60 days to out process and you're gone.
Oh, dude, a pit in my stomach for you right now. I'm feeling it.
So you're like, man, what's the next move, right? So I said, okay, at an absolute minimum, we've got a GI Bill to fall back onto. We can have our rent paid for and our food, help to be paid for with the BAH, and the education will be free, covered, thanks to the GI Bill and thanks to the VA. And so I thought, you know what, that's probably going to be my best move, right? Because if I go continue my education and make myself a better person, right, I'm going to have more to offer, more to bring to the table, and just be more well-rounded as well. So I went to Syracuse University, which was just an hour and 15 minutes south of Fort Drum. And I got a master's in information systems and a certificate of advanced study in information security to kind of pad what it was that I've been doing in the military. But so then this is kind of where CareerBridge came along. So while I was studying full-time, I bought a house. My wife and I were fixing up the house. I'm working full-time as a project manager for a telecommunications company on their federal markets team. I'm going to school full-time. So again, man, I'm just hitting it, candle at both ends for sure.
Yeah.
And I started recognizing a problem. I'm sitting in these classes, I'm sitting in these study halls, I'm going to the cafes, I'm sitting, in these public areas, and I'm chatting with my classmates, and I'm chatting with fellow veterans, and I'm hearing the same tune. Everybody's saying, man, it's so tough to get a job. It's so tough to know how to navigate this space in corporate America. It's so difficult to find purpose outside of the military. And with my classmates, majority of them being international students or BIPOC members, they're saying they're facing other types of barriers and adversities. And I just step back and say, how do we solve this? This is at the time it was 2022 bleeding into 2023. I'm like, how do we solve this? This is crazy. This is America. We got this thing called the American dream. And for these people who are trying to live that, they've faced nothing but hurdles and hardships and barriers to even enter this space, not even giving them chances for jobs or downplaying who they are because of where they came from. And man, it hurt my heart. It hurt my heart. And I realized that if I wanted to be that 20-year veteran, right, being retired after 5, I still had another 15 years that I needed to give. I have another at least 15 years to put into serving the community. And so, one of these students jokingly said, well, why don't you create a company and we'll just work for you? And so after 48 hours of that just burning a hole in the side of my head, I was like, you know what? We're going to do it. So I just said, let me see who I know that has experience, either in entrepreneurship or in the C-suite level, leadership, high-end leadership. And I brought everybody together like the Justice League. And I said, give me your knowledge, tell me what you need to know, what I need to know to get this going. Like, I want to fail fast, fail early, fail often so that I can get to success, because these people deserve the support. These people deserve an opportunity. And if nobody's going to create that opportunity for them, I'll create that opportunity for them. I will step out, put my neck out and say, you're worthy, right? And so I created CareerBridge. And in the beginning, we were just going to be, an MSP. I was just going to be, okay, get a team together, sell software licensing and support, network support or software support. And then I thought about it and I said, man, how many people can you even hire doing that? Not a lot, not at first. You got to really build up a clientele, build up a bankroll before you could start hiring these people on, So I was like, what else can I do? So after kind of feeling it around a little bit, seeking more help, more assistance and guidance from people wiser than me, we ended up shifting gears and becoming a STEM recruiting company. And so now I go out and find people, I recruit people that are from underserved communities, underrepresented groups, Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC community, the indigenous people in the area, there's a huge love and respect for the Haudenosaunee and Onondaga Nation here. And I thought, they need to be incorporated in this as well. And so we have the veterans, so military installations all around New York, within Syracuse, up in northern New York at Fort Drum, over in, the Niagara Falls area, over in Buffalo. And so we said veterans, BIPOC community members, international students, these international professionals, and women in STEM. And so when we took those four major groups, I said, these are the pillars that will be on top of our foundation. These are the pillars that will establish who we are and what it is that we represent. So going off of that, we took it a little step further, right? And we said, STEM in general. So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics-based degrees, which when you look at it is a lot. So I had a chip on my shoulder because all these people keep saying there's no talent, there's no talent. I was a part of that number. So what do you mean there's no talent? I'm here. All my classmates are here. My prior service members are here. So when you say there's no talent, it's disrespectful to me and to my community. So in 2024, I went on a recruiting spree. And in 1 year, I recruited over 1,200 people.
Wow.
And it was
That's awesome.
just, holy smokes, man. We blew the doors off of it. And so from there, I partnered with 7 colleges and universities, military installations, and the Department of Labor for New York State. And that's kind of what helped me generate that level, that volume in terms of recruitment. And so, we wanted to find other ways to give back and other ways to support. So we wanted to take it a step further. And I said, okay, let's say every person that we place, they came from somewhere. Could have been a BOCES, like a trade school for high school students. Could have been a trade school for people who, after they graduate, associates programs, bachelor's, master's, PhDs. We got all these different levels of folks. And what's one common thing that we always hear from the student is it's too expensive. College is very expensive, right? So we decided for every person that we place, we'll find out where they came from, and we're going to donate back 20% of what we earn from that placement back to the college or the university where they came from. And so now we're building this pipeline, and we're supporting the community. So we're handling, employment issues, and we're also handling education issues.
That's
and
phenomenal,
so
man.
Career Bridge, man, it's been a wild ride.
That's amazing, and I love that you shared that story so eloquently. One of the things that, like, when you create such a powerful recruitment side of that, how do you keep the culture similar as what you started with?
Yeah, I think you just have to be very intentional about who you decide to bring on and who you decide to partner with. Any organization that you decide you're going to do business with, if they're going to be wearing your logo, if they're going to display your logo, right? And everything went back to the military, right? I could be Matthew, at a bar, at a restaurant, at a a zoo or a museum or something out in the civilian world, and I'm Matthew, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I still have that DOD ID in my back pocket. So if I got in trouble and I did something out in the public, it would represent my unit, my family, and the culture that was created back in the military. Same thing as if you were on base, maybe you weren't in your company's operating area or, AO, you would be somewhere else on base. You're representing your company. You're representing your unit, your command team. And so everywhere you go, you have to wear that badge on your chest.
Yep.
You have to wear that flag on your shoulder, whatever it is that is representative of your organization. And so now, beyond service, still continuing to create that culture and instill that culture of, camaraderie, fellowship, brotherhood, sisterhood, and really just showing people that I mean what I say, and I am what I say. And this isn't just a facade, right?
That doesn't happen as much anymore, man. And I give you many props for what you've been doing, dude. Awesome job
Thank
of
you.
creating
I appreciate
and
that.
establishing and maintaining that culture. Well done, man. One of the things that we do here on this podcast, so the Milpreneur podcast, is we do a little rapid fire questioning, get to know that founder, that CEO on a little personal level. You down for that?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, man. Hey, what's your book that you're reading? Your favorite book that you're reading right now?
Favorite book, man. Oh, this one's tough. So I've been devouring books in 2025.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot Brian Tracy lately. You know, I'm not a salesman. I am now,
Yeah.
but I guess going into this, I knew nothing about sales, right? Public speaking, communications, that was my shtick, and that's a piece of sales. So I needed to train and learn from the masters. So Brian Tracy is one of those people that is just prolific in terms of his experience with sales. And so I've been reading Advanced Strategies for Sales by him recently, just to kind of learn how do you navigate these different types of conversations. You know, when I walk into a room, if people know what I'm all about, great. Yeah, they'll come right up to me. We'll have a conversation. They're interested in my product. They know that, it's a good organization. It supports local economies. That's all fine. But the people who don't know me, who don't know the product, don't know my company, how do you explain that to them? And as you can see from this, podcast and most of the other places, brevity has always been an issue of mine. So just like learning how to harness this craft that is sales and communicating with potential clients is just a tremendous journey in and of itself. So I've been reading a lot of Brian Tracy lately. But yeah, I'm looking forward to. I also read, what is it called? One of the, oh my goodness, I can't think of it right now. But there are just loads of his books that I've been eating up, and there's this incredible book that I can't think of the title off the top of my head, but it's all about the Comanches and how they were such a dominant force, in that Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, like all down in that range. And something of the summer moon. I can't think of what the title is completely. But nevertheless, I just finished that book, and that was a massive read. A lot of the time I cheat and I'm listening on audiobooks because I'm moving around a lot.
That's all good, brother. You're still taking in the info, bro.
You got to do it. You got to do it.
Awesome, man. Hey, what was the first job you ever had?
First job I ever had, I was 11 years old. And I was working at my uncle's dairy farm, half a mile down the road from my house, just volunteering to help him out, help the family out with the milking process and everything. And my aunt used to pay me an ice cream. So she lived, so there was a barn, and then right on the street level above the barn, they built a little ice cream shop. And so she trained and learned how to make ice cream. And so she had this beautiful ice cream shop with, hands down to this day, I've never had ice cream better than this, hard ice cream better than this. And so, man, yeah, I used to get paid in that. But like a first official W-2 job that I ever had, I worked as a lobby boy in McDonald's.
There you go.
So all I did was clean bathrooms, mop floors, clean trays, just all the grunt work. Yeah.
Love it, man.
Start from the bottom.
Exactly. Look where you're at now, man. Well done. Hey, if you could have like a superpower, like the Avengers or the X-Men, what superpower would you have?
I ask people this all the time. This is one of my favorite questions. Is I reference your skills and your attributes that you put on your resume as a superpower. And so I ask people all the time, in a fictitious sense, what superpower would you have as well? And I'm always tied between the ability to fly, because I just love to travel. I love seeing new places and doing all that. But sometimes you want to get there quick, right? Or if you're in a hurry and you got to get somewhere fast, I always think about in X-Men, teleportation.
Yeah, Nightcrawler.
Man, Nightcrawler was cool, man. His history was cool. He had sweet tattoos all over him. I was like, this is a pretty badass dude, and teleporting would be so sweet. So yeah, I don't know. I either say it's a tie between flight and teleportation. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool, man. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Oh, I'm an early bird. Absolutely an early bird. I'll wake up at like 4 a.m., go hit my workout, get my day started. and I'm by like 9 o'clock, I'm looking for the bed. I'm like, yeah, it's time to go to sleep. 9:30. If it's 10 o'clock and I'm not in my bed, I'm probably, chatting with one of my buddies, or maybe
Right.
my wife and I are having like a nice ice cream date after putting the baby down or something like that. But definitely a morning person over a night owl.
Love it, man. Hey, you talked about getting your workouts in. What's on your workout playlist right now?
Workout playlist. I'm weird about my playlists. I've got so many different playlists. My wife teases me all the time that I'm so organized, but almost like in a OCD kind of a way. And so I've got playlists for every vibe, for every attitude that I have, So like if I'm getting in there and I'm angry and I want to, hit a good workout, I've got this hardcore mix playlist. It's got like Avenged Sevenfold and,
There you go.
Disturbed and A Day to Remember and all the folks that we used to listen to downrange. And then, there's other times where I'm getting in there and maybe I'm more plyometrics. Maybe I'm more trying to be a little more zen, trying to be a little more, centered. And so I've got a couple playlists there as well. But in a weird way, some people think I'm crazy for this. Sometimes I'll throw on Les Brown. I'll throw
There you
on some
go.
motivational speakers,
Yeah,
and I'll
yeah.
just get after it. Andy Elliott or Les Brown or somebody like that, and I'll just go after whatever it is that I'm chasing in the gym that day.
I love it, man. If you could have dinner with a historical figure, whether it's living or deceased, who would it be?
Oof, that one hit my heart as soon as you said that. Yeah, I have a cousin of mine who was killed in Afghanistan, and so part of the reason why I raised my hand and said I want to go forward with the unit and go to a combat zone was because I was struggling. I was struggling, and I had vengeance on my mind. And so now that I've been there, I stood where he stood with the same name tape, with the same first lieutenant rank, at that same place 12 years to the day that he stood for the last time before he walked out that gate and never came back. And so if I could go back in time or bring him back to life to sit down and just talk with him, you know what I mean, one more time, and really just kind of go over his thoughts and what he's experienced, just to hear it from his perspective,
Yeah.
And now that I've been through a similar situation. So I think my cousin Jeff, I would definitely want to sit down and have a meal with him again.
Man, that's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that such a personal story. I appreciate that.
Yeah, hey, absolutely.
As we wrap this up here, I know you've been around the world a little bit, but do you still have a bucket list travel spot for yourself?
Yeah, so two of my big bucket list items, my wife and I, we hit up. So Italy was a big one for me. Really wanted to go and check that out, but we wanted to do, a full immersion. So we vacationed where the Italians vacation. We avoided all the tourist traps, and my wife is incredible at designing itinerary. And so she handles all that. She loves doing it. And I love eating and seeing all those places. So I appreciate when she does that. And then the second one was Hawaii. And my brother-in-law was stationed out there. And when our daughter was just 5 months old, he had never met her yet. So we flew out to Hawaii with our daughter. And so that took two of them right off my list. And I guess if I had to go somewhere else right now, as being a huge skier, I would either want to go to British Columbia, Canada on a ski trip, or
Whistler, baby.
Yeah, Whistler, absolutely. Whistler at Blackcomb. I've heard and seen so many amazing things, and it's not too far away. It's right here on our doorstep, really. So it's interesting. I would like to go there, but if I wanted to go even bigger for skiing, I would want to hit up the Alps. So I'd say the next trip I would like, would be a ski trip, something with big mountain.
Awesome, man. Very cool. Well, you crushed the rapid fire, my friend. Thank you for being so open and honest, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Ryan. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Hey, before we wrap this thing up, if you could go back in time, be that time traveler, okay?
Yeah.
You're gonna be a time travel, but you're gonna meet your former self. What one piece of advice would you give yourself?
Never stop going forward.
Love that.
Period.
Love that, man. That's awesome. Dude, I love your story. I love what you got going on. If people are interested in being a part of your mission, being a part of what you got going on with the Career Bridge, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to get in touch with me is probably going to be through LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn pretty easy. It's by my name, Matthew DePrimo. If you can't find my LinkedIn for some reason, throw my name into a Google search and it should pop up. You could also, go out to our website, careerbridgeitsolutions.com, no space, no capital, and or you can go to the LinkedIn. We have that there as well. So really we just want to be where people are. We want to meet them where they're at. And on social media, I don't really get in. I don't have Twitter. I don't have LinkedIn, or I don't have Instagram. I mean, my Facebook is private only for my family and friends. And same thing with my Snapchat. We not really a big social media guy, but LinkedIn
Sure.
is something that I appreciate. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me, head right over to my LinkedIn, shoot me a request, shoot me a message, and I'm always here to listen. I will make time for anybody.
Awesome. Matthew DePrimo, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Milpreneur podcast today, man. Thank you so much for your time. It's been sincerely appreciated.
Thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate you creating this platform for people to come up here and talk about, what it is that they're doing and how they're making an impact. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. Got to give our vets our shine, man. Congratulations on all the success and best of luck in all your future endeavors. Absolutely. I'm signing off, Ryan Van Ornen with the Milpreneur podcast. Until the next time, make sure that you still hit up synergist.com for anything on the scalable operations side as they're our sponsor. And then also make sure you check and subscribe on our LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, but YouTube and Spotify channels. Until the next time, stay blessed, everyone. Take care.